Why doesn't fine feel fine?
Hi, I'm Candace. I'm really glad you're here. I want to start by saying something that might land a little strangely, so bear with me for a second. I think I know you. Not your name, not your history, nothing like that. But I think I know the specific thing you do at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the day has gotten away from you and you can feel the tension collecting somewhere behind your eyes.
I think I know the way you replay a conversation on the drive home, running through what you should have said instead of what you actually said. And I think I know that you are, by almost every measure anyone would use, doing fine. And that fine is not the word you would choose. If any of that landed, I want you to know something right away. You're in very good company. I have had this conversation with so many people, and every single one of them thought they were the only one. Here's what I've come to understand after years of sitting with people who are extraordinarily capable, really genuinely good at what they do, and who are quietly struggling with something they can't quite name. The problem is almost never capability. You are not lacking intelligence. You are not lacking discipline. You are not lacking the willingness to work hard. Honestly, you have probably been working so hard for so long that stopping feels a little dangerous. I understand that. The problem is something much quieter than that, and much kinder once you see it clearly. Somewhere along the way, you lost the ability to get back to yourself quickly, not permanently. Please hear that part. You get back eventually, everyone does. But the trip takes hours now, sometimes days. And in the space between the moment you left yourself and the moment you found your way back, things happened. A conversation went sideways. A decision got made from a place that wasn't quite you. A relationship absorbed a little more wear than it needed to. That gap. That's what I want to talk about with you today. And I want to tell you up front, it's workable. Let me be very clear about something before we go any further, because I have a feeling you've been burned before. This is not a spiritual practice. I am not going to ask you to believe anything. I am not going to ask you to become a different kind of person, or adopt a new identity, or use words that would make you uncomfortable saying out loud to your colleagues. If that's what you were bracing for, you can relax. You're safe here. What I'm describing is closer to a performance edge. It's trainable, it's repeatable, and it's measurable. And it happens to be one of the very few advantages left in the world that can't be faked, can't be purchased, and can't be handed off to anybody else. It's yours. Why do you replay the drive home? Let me describe some moments. And I want to say up front, you don't have to agree with any of these. Just see if any of them feel familiar. You're in a negotiation. You know the material cold. You prepared. You did everything right. And somewhere around the 11-minute mark, you feel yourself tighten. A small physical contraction somewhere in your chest. And from that point forward, you're not really negotiating anymore. You're managing your own discomfort while doing your best to look like you're negotiating. You still might win, but you didn't quite get to show up. Somebody very competent showed up wearing your clothes. Or this one, you're having a conversation with your teenager. And it's the same conversation. It has the same shape every single time. And you can see the shape of it forming before it even fully arrives. And you promise yourself that this time you're going to hold steady. And then somewhere around minute 4, you say the thing. The thing you specifically told yourself you weren't going to say. And you watch their face change, and you know immediately and completely. I want to pause right there for a second, because I know what happens next. You carry that one around. You replay it that night. And I want to say to you as clearly as I can, That moment was not a referendum on whether you're a good parent. It really wasn't. Or this one. It's 3 a.m, nothing is wrong. Your doctor has looked at everything and told you that nothing is wrong. And yet there you are, awake, and there's a low hum of something running underneath your ribs, and you've been carrying it so long that somewhere along the line, you just decided this must be how you're built. I don't think it is. And then there's this one. This is the one I think hurts the most, so I want to say it carefully, and I want to say it kindly. You have done the work. You read the books. You went to therapy, maybe for years. You did the retreat, the practice, the program, the thing your friend swore by. You are not unaware. You have real insight into your own patterns. You could explain your childhood to a stranger with remarkable precision. You did the work. And yet, under real pressure, not the manageable kind, not the kind you can prepare for, but the sudden kind that arrives without warning, a version of you shows up that you don't quite recognize. And afterward, you're left holding two things at the same time: the knowledge of who you're capable of being and the evidence of who actually walked in. So here is what I want you to hear. And I'd love it if you'd let this one in. That gap between knowing and doing is not a character flaw. It isn't. It is not evidence that you failed at the work. It is not evidence that the work was wrong. And it is absolutely not evidence that you're broken in some way that other people aren't. You are not broken. You have insight without a mechanism. That's all. You know exactly what's happening. Nobody ever gave you a reliable way back. And that is a very fixable problem. Why didn't the books work? So here's the reframe. And honestly, this is my favorite part, so let me give it to you plainly. You've been trying to solve this by understanding it better. More insight, more analysis, more awareness of the pattern. And listen, understanding is genuinely useful. None of that was wasted. I want to be really clear about that. But understanding a reactive pattern and being able to interrupt one are two completely different skills, and almost nobody teaches the second one. That's not your fault. It just isn't taught. Think about it this way. If you wanted to get stronger, you wouldn't read about muscle fiber recruitment for 6 years and then feel bad about yourself because you still can't lift the box. You'd need reps. Actual, physical, boring, repeated reps. The return to yourself works exactly the same way, which is good news because reps are something you already know how to do. There's a moment, and I want you to start looking for it because once you see it, you can't unsee it. A moment that lives just before the reaction takes over. It's brief. Sometimes it's barely half a second, but in that moment, you're still present. You're still clear. You're still completely yourself. Before the noise arrives, before the old pattern engages, before somebody else's answer starts running in your head, that's the moment I call first cause. And here's the part that changes everything. That moment is repeatable. It's trainable. And with a little practice, you can get to it on purpose, not just when things are calm and easy, but in the hard moments, the ones that actually count. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you'll stop having reactions. You won't. You're human, and reactions are part of the equipment. Frankly, you'd be strange without them. What I am telling you is that the distance between leaving yourself and finding your way back can shrink dramatically. From days to hours, from hours to minutes, and eventually, and this is the part that genuinely delights me, every time I get to watch it happen, it can shrink to the point where the return is faster than the reaction, and you're back before any damage is done. That's not a metaphor. That's a real, measurable capability, and it's available to you. Why do you dismiss the small wins? Let me tell you what this looks like at the beginning, because I'd never want to sell you a mountaintop when what I'm handing you is a really good first step. In the first 2 weeks, you're not going to feel transformed. Nobody does. And anyone who promises you otherwise is selling something. What you're going to notice is smaller, quieter, and honestly, a lot more interesting than that. You'll notice a slightly shorter recovery from a stressful moment. Something happens, you react, and then, a little sooner than usual, you come back. And here's what I love about this one. You'll notice it before anybody else does. It's yours first, an internal event. You'll make a decision that came from a cleaner place than usual. You won't be able to prove it to anyone, but you'll know because the decision will sit differently in your body afterward. You'll catch yourself mid-pattern. And I'll be honest, this one is a little startling the first time it happens. You'll be right in the middle of the familiar conversation, and you'll feel the old shape arriving, and something in you will just quietly say, "Not this time." And you'll hold. Maybe only for a few seconds, but you held. And I want you to notice that you held. And then you'll take 60 seconds before a hard situation. Just 60 seconds of coming back to yourself. And what follows will be different. Not perfect, different. Different is the whole game. I want to be honest with you about something because I'd rather you hear it from me now. Those first wins are small enough that your mind is going to try to dismiss them. It'll tell you that was a coincidence. That was just a good day. That doesn't really count. Please don't let it do that. Those are reps. Every single one of them is a rep, and reps compound. The person who can return to themselves in 90 days is built entirely out of the small wins. They were generous enough with themselves not to dismiss in the first 2 weeks. So be generous with yourself. Count the small ones. Why didn't the loud room move you? At 30 days, something shifts in a way you can actually point to. And this is a lovely moment because it's the first time it stops being a feeling and starts being evidence. You'll be able to name, specifically, with detail, 3 moments in the past month where you were different. Not vaguely better, different. The meeting where you stayed in your own judgment while the room got loud. The conversation with your mother that didn't go where it always goes. The evening you came home genuinely present instead of just physically present. You'll also start seeing movement in the data. And I want to be careful here because I know how this can sound. There are 5 dimensions of inner life that can be tracked, each one grounded in peer-reviewed research. And when you track them over 30 days, you get something most people never get: confirmation. The data quietly tells you what you've already been sensing. The practice is working. And you don't have to take my word for it, or even your own word for it, which for a lot of us is the harder one to trust. And then other people start noticing something. They usually can't name it. They'll say, "You seem different lately," or ask if something changed, and you'll probably just shrug, because there's no short answer, and it's a little bit lovely to keep it to yourself for a while. By 90 days, the shape of your life has quietly changed. The return is now faster than the reactive pattern. That's the threshold. That's the thing worth training for. You get back to yourself before any damage is done, before the sentence leaves your mouth, before the decision gets made, before a relationship you care about absorbs another small wound it never needed. You become more astute, not because you picked up new information, but because a clear starting place produces better thinking. You read situations faster. You see what's actually happening instead of reacting to whatever it stirred up in you. You become the person in the room that others turn to when nobody knows what to do. Nobody appoints you, it just happens, because steadiness is easy to spot, and people find it without being told where to look. And in your family,
And this one matters more to me than all the rest. You become the one who holds, the leader, not by title, by capacity. The one your kids bring their real problems to instead of the tidy version. The one who holds the line when everything else is spinning. That's the superpower. And I think the best part is that it's completely invisible until the results are simply undeniable. Why is this decision 11 months old? I want to say something now that's a little harder to hear. And I'm going to say it because I think you'd rather have the truth from someone who's on your side than the comfortable version from someone who isn't. There's probably a decision you've been sitting with, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe longer than you'd say out loud. And you've built a whole architecture of very reasonable explanations for why the timing isn't right yet. And honestly, some of those explanations are true. I'm not going to pretend they aren't. But underneath them, in the place where you actually know things, you already have your answer. You've had it for a while, and you've been carefully, gently explaining it away. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do about that. That's not my business, and I don't know your life, and anybody who tells you they do is guessing. But I do want to point at the mechanism because it's the same one we've been talking about all along. You can't make that decision from where you're currently standing, and not because you're weak. Please don't take it that way. It's because you're not standing in a clear place. You're standing in accumulated noise, other people's expectations, old fear, the version of you that got built for circumstances that stopped existing years ago. And that version of you was doing its best, by the way. It was protecting something. But decisions made from that place feel wrong, no matter which way they go, which is exactly why you keep not making it. You're not avoiding it. You're waiting for solid ground. That's actually wise. The way through isn't more analysis. You've done the analysis. You could teach the analysis. The way through is to get back to yourself first. Really back, not performed back, and then look at the decision from there. And what happens almost every single time is that it stops feeling like a decision. It starts feeling like recognition, like something you already knew finally being allowed to be true. I've watched this happen so many times. And I'll tell you honestly, it never stops moving me. Why don't you know that face? Can I name a few things that might have quietly gone missing? And please, you don't have to agree with any of these. Just take what's useful and leave the rest. You stopped recognizing yourself in photographs. Not in a vanity way. Something about the expression is just unfamiliar. Your friendships thinned into text threads. Not dramatically. Nobody had a falling out. They just became logistics. Happy birthday. Congratulations. We should get together sometime. And then nobody quite does. Your marriage or your partnership became an operations meeting. Who's picking up whom? What's for dinner? Did you call the insurance company? You still love each other. I want to say that clearly because I think you do. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being curious about each other, and neither of you noticed the exact moment it happened. That's not a failure of love. It's a failure of margin. And the career success, if you got it, turned out flatter than you expected. You did everything right. It looked exactly like success from the outside. From the inside, it was strangely quiet. Nobody warned you about the hollow achievement. I think it's the least discussed disappointment there is. And it's a lonely one to carry. I'm not naming any of this to make you feel worse. That's the last thing I want. I'm naming it because I think you've been carrying it alone, and there's a particular kind of relief in hearing somebody else describe the inside of your own life accurately. So if you felt a little relief just now, that's allowed. And here's the important part. None of it is permanent. That's the actual point. Every one of those things thinned out because you were operating from too far away from yourself for too long. That's all. And the distance is not fixed. It's trainable. I'm not saying that to cheer you up. That's just what the mechanism does. Why do skeptics do better at this? Let me run through a few questions people ask me all the time because they're good ones and they cover some useful ground. How long does this take each day? Roughly 6 to 8 minutes. Some people do 12. One woman I worked with in Zurich insisted on exactly 90 seconds, 3 times a day, and her 30-day results were the best in the whole group, which very politely taught me to stop prescribing. Do I need special equipment? No, nothing, 0, just you. Does it work if I'm skeptical? Yes, and honestly, skeptics tend to do better, which surprised me at first. I think it's because skeptics measure. They want proof, so they actually track their results, and tracking is half the mechanism. So if you're skeptical, good, bring it. What if I miss a day? You miss a day. Then you do the next day. That's it. And I mean this sincerely. The judgment you'd pile onto that missed day will cost you far more than the missed day ever will. Just pick it back up. Is this therapy? No. It doesn't replace therapy. It doesn't compete with therapy. And if you're working with someone good, please keep working with them. This is a different function entirely. Therapy examines the pattern. This interrupts it in real time. They go together beautifully. What about medication, anxiety, existing conditions? Talk to your physician. I mean that plainly and warmly. I'm not a clinician, and I'd never pretend otherwise. How quickly will other people notice? Usually somewhere between week 3 and week 6. About 70% of people report that someone said something before day 45. Is there a wrong way to do this? Only one, really, doing it exclusively when things are calm. The calm reps are practice. The hard reps are the actual work. If you only ever come back to yourself on a quiet Tuesday morning with coffee, you're building a skill you can't reach for when it counts. And you deserve to be able to reach for it. Why do you think you're behind? I want to say something directly to you now. And I'd really like you to actually take it in rather than deflecting it, which I suspect is a bit of a habit. You are not behind. You're not. I know it feels that way. I know there's a running calculation somewhere in the back of your head about the time you've lost, the years you spent on the wrong thing, the version of your life that would exist if you'd figured this out at 30 instead of now. I know that calculation runs quietly all day long, and I know it never once gives you a satisfying answer. So put it down. You're allowed to put it down. It's not a useful instrument. It doesn't measure anything real. Here's what is real. The capacity I've been describing is available to you starting today, at whatever age you are, in whatever condition your life is in right now. It doesn't require you to have made better choices. It doesn't require you to have been someone else. It requires exactly one thing: reps, starting now. That's it. That's the whole entry fee. And there's one more thing I really want you to know. The person you've been trying to become, the steady one, the clear one, the one who holds under pressure, the one people turn to, you've been picturing that person as somebody you have to build from scratch, somebody you have to earn your way into. That's not what's happening here. That person already exists. They're underneath the accumulated noise, and they have been there the entire time. Every moment you've ever had of unusual clarity, the ones that surprised you, the ones you couldn't explain or repeat, that wasn't luck. That was you. Briefly unobstructed. You are not building someone new. You're clearing a path back to someone who was always there. And they've been waiting. And I've watched enough people walk that path to tell you, with no hedging at all, it works. It isn't fast. It isn't dramatic. It will not feel like a revelation.
It'll feel like small, boring, ordinary reps that quietly add up to a person you eventually don't recognize as your former self. And that, I promise you, is the good kind of not recognizing yourself. Why does noticing feel useless? So let me leave you with the one thing I most want you to hold on to. There's a moment, right before the reaction, right before the noise, right before the borrowed answer arrives in your head. It's small. Most people go their whole lives without ever noticing it's there. You're going to start noticing it. And at first, noticing is all you'll be able to do. You'll see the moment, and then you'll watch the reaction happen anyway. And you'll think, well, that was useless. It wasn't. Please believe me on this one. Noticing is the first rep. Noticing is everything, because you can't return to a place you can't find. And then one day, I can't tell you which day, nobody can, you'll notice the moment and you'll stay in it, just for a beat. And the thing that always happens next won't happen. And you'll be standing there in a situation that has always gone one particular way, watching it go a different way, because you were there for it. That's the whole thing. That's the entire practice. Everything else is detail. I'm really glad you stayed with me this long. That says something good about you. Most people don't, and the ones who do tend to be the ones who are already close. So go find the moment. I think it's a lot closer than you think, and I'm rooting for you. What's the first cause of yours? Find out the first cause of your problem. It may not be what you think. Take the assessment of the 5 dimensions of your inner life: mindful awareness, well-being and happiness, life satisfaction, meaning and purpose, consciousness development. Free, 5 minutes, no email required. See the link in bio.